What were your thoughts on this Matthew Stafford trade? It came out this weekend, really in the beginning of the weekend, and everybody was all flabbergasted because a lot of people believe the Rams gave up too much to get a 33-year-old quarterback that hasn't really been the quarterback that we remember since really Johnson retired. So what were your thoughts on Jared Goff getting traded to the Lions, Matthew Stafford getting traded to the Rams?
I also thought it was a lot from an NFL side. I get it. They had to make the money work. I just was still shocked that somebody would go out and trade that many first picks. I guess the Rams really don't like first round picks. That's pretty much what it's come down to. They're not going to pick one for what, like 7 or 8 years now after it's all said and done. And who knows? Maybe they'll keep going. I think it's a good fit for Stafford. I really do. If they can bolster that offensive line a little bit, I think he can really flourish there. So it's a good trade for the Rams. Their window is going to close really fast on the Super Bowl. That defense is going to get older, and they're going to lose guys for sure after a while. And so that being able to carry them into a Super Bowl, that window's closing. So I think they saw this opportunity like, hey, let's do it now and just see what happens. I don't blame them for trying. I don't hate it.
What do you think in terms of the impact that this kind of trade will have for Robert Woods and Cooper, getting Hawkinson, guys like that, even DeAndre Swift? Do you think those values will be like, do you think it'll be an upgrade or a downgrade with the new quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think on the Rams side, you're looking at a slight upgrade for both Woods and Kupp. I mean, they were both already, easy wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 1 some weeks, that kind of range for those guys. But I think they just become more consistent. So you're going to be looking to target them in drafts. The run game there might take a slight hit though. But I mean, who knows? It's hard to say if the lack of the run game in Detroit was Stafford or if it was coaching. So I have to kind of wait and see there and see what reports say. But my gut says the run game takes a bit of a hit because the passing game will be able to thrive so much. Now over in Detroit, I think it's kind of the opposite. The receivers are going to take a bit of a hit. Goff is just not a very consistent quarterback, in my opinion, and he has relatively more bad games than good games. So those guys are definitely going to take a hit. And man, if they lose Galladay, that's brutal, which I think we all kind of expect to happen. Yep. Unfortunately. So, maybe in that case, just because they lost Galladay, Jones gets a slight uptick because he might see more targets, and Hawkinson will as well, assuming they don't bring in somebody else. But then on the other side, like you look at DeAndre Swift, his value might go up because Goff is known to utilize the run game a lot, and he checked down to the run game too, to where that's something Stafford didn't really do. So I like Swift a little bit more on that side.
Carl, one of our fans, Carl, asked me how he will compare stats in a baseball season being shorter. How did you compare the stats for a baseball season being shorter?
Yeah, the $100 question, $1 million question for the year. It's tough actually. You've got to account for it, but it's also a small sample size. So you've got to realize, like, you think of it as like a player going, getting hot for like the first half of the season before the All-Star break. And then, well, sometimes we see that they just totally crash afterwards. So you've got to take that into account. When I did, the rankings and things like that, I definitely looked at last year, but I didn't take it into full account that I normally would.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about, I'd say maybe about 75% of the way I normally would. But I mean, look, it was still a season. Players were playing, so you can't totally ignore it either.
Mm-hmm. As you guys know, we are talking to the founder of Fantasy Six Pack, Joe Bond.
You brought up the baseball season, one for it being shorter and also two for it being a little different in terms of both the pitching strategy with opener, with pitchers not going as long in games, and also with the relief pitchers, not as many true closers. How do you address that kind of strategy with these managerial changes that have come and just the strategy changes as a whole in real baseball when judging for fantasy?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, you're seeing it. So if you look at ADP values right now, you're seeing top end pitching going earlier. And I tend to agree with that. You've got to go out and get some of these guys that you can rely on, the DeGroms. It used to be Kershaw, but the Walker Buehlers and those types of pitchers. You've got to go get your workhorse pitchers to get you, if you're in a quality starts league, guys that are going to go 7-8 innings that are going to be able to qualify for quality starts, or pitch long enough where you don't have to go into the bullpen and rely on some relief arm to possibly blow the game if you're in wins and things like that. So I think top end pitching gets pushed up. Now, what that does, there's a domino effect. So really good hitting is at a value. So if you want to ignore the top end pitching and go with like mid-tier guys, which is plausible, you can, and you can just hammer hitting early because so many people are going to take pitchers. I mean, you're seeing just loads. Like I've seen mock drafts of like, some of the top experts out there, and the color is yellow for pitchers. And the first 3 rounds is like half yellow. We've never seen anything like that before. Never. So you're seeing it with even the guys that, that do this for a living. They're just hammering pitching, and rightfully so. Now I'm probably going to go with like 1 or 2 in the first 4 rounds. I'm not going to go, 3. I've seen guys just pitcher, and that's a bit much for me. Like, look, hitting, in my opinion, is more consistent and more reliable. And you still need those top end hitters to compete in your leagues. If you don't have them, you're gonna have to really get lucky a lot, to where streaming pitching is still a thing. And you're going to find guys that come out of the woodwork every single year. I mean, come on, who would have thought last year Trevor Bauer was going to do what he did? Mm-hmm. He was a steal last year.
So let me ask you this question. Obviously, we are talking to the founder of the Fantasy Six Pack, Joe Bond. Joe, the Yankees were talking to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago for Luis Castillo. And there were stories coming out that they were interested in possibly Andahar and another young player in their farm system, maybe another player, maybe another player right now in their starting lineup. But then there were stories coming out that Gleyber Torres was the guy that they really wanted. And Gleyber Torres, who's an everyday player, 2 years ago, he was a 40-40 hitter. I think he had 40 home runs and 40, I think he had something like that. He had 40 home runs and 40 doubles or something like that. So when you look at Gleyber Torres and you look at the New York Yankees, would you make that move right now because of the Yankees' problem at their pitching staff in the beginning of their starting rotation? I mean, you have Garrett Cole, now you have Kluber, you added Talon. Do you make a move for Castillo and trade one of your best player, if not your best player, your best all-around player, or do you hold up on that trade and maybe wait in the middle of the season? Maybe you can get him for a cheaper price.
Me personally, I think I hold because I don't know who takes Torres' spot in the field. That would be the
Gregorius. Didi Gregorius, he's available. You bring in a left-handed bat that you need. I mean, he's been in New York.
I think now. Look, a few weeks ago before they made all the moves, probably a different story. I think I might have pulled the trigger on that. But now, since they have added Kluber and Taillon, and to pair up with Cole, I'm not as concerned anymore as a Yankee. I think that's a pretty good 1, 2, 3. It can compete. And, having Torres there to just mash with Stanton and Judge, and obviously Voit and LeMahieu, like that's a powerful lineup. So that's something I wouldn't want to break up too much. I mean, Didi's okay, but I mean,
he's a left-handed bat, which the Yankees have been crying for ever since they lost Didi Gregorius. He went to Philadelphia for a year. He did pretty well in Philadelphia. If you look at Didi's numbers in Philadelphia, he had great numbers. If I were the Yankees right now, I'd still bring Didi Gregorius back for a $3 or $4 million a year. I think he would come back to the New York Yankees. The Yankees have the highest payroll in baseball. And by the way, I'm a Yankee fan. All those Yankee fans that are crying the river that the Yankees aren't open up their pockets or they didn't make a move for like Francisco Lindor, cry me a river. The Yankees have arguably probably 2 of the best power hitters in the outfield in Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, who can't stay healthy, by the way. Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, who won the batting title this year. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. If you don't win with this team and this roster, then you're not going to win at all. So all you Yankee fans that are crying the river that the Mets are opening up their pockets and the Yankees didn't, the Yankees are opening up the pockets. It just doesn't look like the sassy move that the Mets made for Francisco Lindor. So, but your thoughts to the Yankees giving DJ LeMahieu the 6-year, I think it was 6 years, 80 or 90 million.
Yeah, 90.
$90 million and really changing really the cap. I mean, you think about the Yankees over the last 20 years, 25 years. George Steinbrenner had to spend the money to bring in the big players. The Jason Giambis, they never won with them. The Alex Rodriguez, they won one title with them. So all the players that the Yankees have brought in to the organization, the veteran players that have become, they were superstars, really didn't pan out for the Yankees. Are you surprised? Are you surprised that the Yankees have completely changed possibly where baseball is going now with the whole COVID-19 and now signing the players for a longer contract for lesser money? Are you surprised about it? Savarino, last year they did that with the Yankees did.
Yeah, when that contract got announced, my jaw dropped. First off, for two reasons. One, the money really is nothing in comparison to what the Yankees have spent and what other teams usually would spend for a player that produced like DJ LeMahieu. And then you add on the fact that it's 6 years. He'll be 38, 39 when it's done. I mean, so it's like a win-win for both sides. Like DJ LeMahieu got the years he wanted and the guaranteed money. And, he's throughout the rest of his career. So he got what he wanted and the Yankees got what they wanted and a huge salary saver. It was a phenomenal contract, in my opinion, that the Yankees signed. And I'm actually surprised that DJ LeMahieu didn't try to go for more money. He deserves it. I mean, he's great.
He took less money to go to the Yankees. I heard what I was hearing. Another team, I don't remember what team it was, offered him 110, 115. He took less money, took $15 million or almost $20 million less to go back to the Yankees. That shows you how much he loved the Yankees, loves playing there. He grew up a Yankee fan, and the Yankees took a chance on him a couple of years ago. And boy, oh boy, Brian Cashman looks smarter and smarter every single year. Landing DJ LeMahieu, giving him, I think he got $21 million for a 2-year contract. He should have won the batting title the year before the year before this past year. He was second. He was runner-up for the batting title, and then he won the batting title. He's the first player in Major League history to win batting titles in the National League and the American League. From all the great players we've seen over the years, this guy was the first player to do that. So it's an amazing feat, and I thought was the MVP of the league.
He's phenomenal, man. I'll tell you, I've got him in one of my dynasty baseball leagues, and people can't pry him off of me. Like I'm like, nah, I'm good. He's just super good and consistent, and he like rarely comes out of my lineup. I love having him. So glad to have him with the Yankees still. It'll help his fantasy value for sure.
So let's go to DJ LeMahieu's former teammate in Nolan Arenado. He got traded to the Cardinals, a move that the Cardinals really fleeced the Rockies really badly in that deal. Now, from a fantasy perspective, Nolan Arenado is going to lose a lot not having Coors Field, which really elevates.
No, he's not.
A lot.
No, he's not. No, he's not in that lineup.
But also you're not facing Dodgers pitching and Padres pitching with what they did in the offseason. You're facing a division which outside of the Reds, assuming they keep everybody, they don't have a lot of pitching in that division. So what do you think his fantasy value will be like in terms of his numbers, in power numbers, RBI numbers, stuff like that?
I think he's gonna be pretty much the same, honestly. Like maybe he loses a tick of power, but I mean he's a good home road split guy. Like, yeah, the numbers are a little inflated because of the Coors Field, but it's not like he was bad away. And that's a fairly powerful lineup that they've got there in St. Louis. Maybe instead of, I mean, my God, he had some seasons where he was like 100 and 130 RBI. Like, maybe instead of those, maybe we get more, near the 100, 110 range. Okay. Like you're still fine with that. I think last year was, when you talk about small sample size, I think Nolan Arenado is one of those guys where, he was a little bit banged up last year. I think he had a shoulder injury basically most of the season.
He didn't want to be there either. He didn't want to be there.
No, he hates it there. So he wasn't into it. And you saw like his average drop dramatically. He's never hit 253 before. He's always been in 280s, 290s, 300s hitter. The slugging percentage dropped dramatically. Like it just was an off year for them. And I think you can kind of, when you look at the short sample size in the 60-game season, you look at a guy like Arenado where like it's such a dramatic drop. You can go, that's probably something I can pretty much ignore. And I'll tell you, in fantasy leagues, he's going third, fourth round. He was a first rounder last year. I'll take that every day. There's no way he's lasting that long in leagues. I guarantee his value is going to go back up.